Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to The Caring View, the online health and social care platform, free to access to absolutely everybody. Before we get started, I've left my microphone behind the computer, so let me bring that forward. I've only just realised. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button, give us a follow, give us a subscribe. We're live across LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, X, Twitch, whatever, where we are on there. So give us a follow and you will find us. The Caring View is completely free, absolutely free to access our resources, our podcasts, our chat show episodes, and you can find all of our content at www.thecaringview.co.uk, powered by Jack AI. Everything we do is completely free, will never cost, and if we do try and charge you for any of the stuff we try and give you in the future, please sue me. I say that every week, and I hope that I never do charge you because I do not want to be sued. The reason that we can provide you all of this stuff for free, all of the content for free, our fabulous guests and everything else that we do is because we have some very generous sponsors whom we are very, very grateful for. So before we get into tonight's conversation, quick roll call for our sponsors. We have got Prosperwell, the UK's leading digital marketing agency, www.prosperwell.co.uk. Call on them for all of your marketing needs, whether it's because you want to increase your occupancy, you want to get some new people into your home, maybe you're opening up a service and you want to celebrate it and you want to share it out for the world to see. Prosperwell are the team that you need. We've got CBAT, Care Business Associates training. For all of your healthcare training requirements, CBAT can provide every training course that you need. And I advocate these guys every single week. We use them in our services. They are spectacular, from basic training courses to high performance leadership to train the trainers and including chaps. Please do go check them out. We have Attis Care by Attis Insurance Brokers for your comprehensive care coverage and proactive risk management. More than just your brokers for insurance, though, they are a helpful voice at the end of the line. And I'm really, really proud to say that Attis are renewing their sponsorship with us. They are joining us for another 12 months here at the Caring View, and we're really proud to have them on this journey. Same with Log My Care. Log My Care are joining us for another 12 months, and it's going to be exciting to be doing some more work with Log My Care and their team over this next 12 months. You will know Log My Care from every single week. We tell you they've got a free version of this care platform that they have out there, so go and give it a try. But they do a lot of work around that complex care area as well. Mark, you do many podcasts with them. They are really, really great, and you should go and check them out. I've said that our website is powered by Jack AI, and they are both the brainchilds of Jack White. And alongside Jack AI is Health Automated Online and then Learningment Online, AI-powered software here. So AI-powered care planning, AI-powered training. Give that a check. We've got Florence. Oh my God, another one. And Florence, again, joining us for another 12 months along this journey on the Caring View, which we are super proud for. They are directly connecting you with healthcare professionals and organizations with shifts in training around the country. Great alternative to agencies, and a really fabulous training suite of resources there for your team as well. Last but not least, we have Every Step Care Consultancy, transforming care services with tailored consultancy and turnaround management, coaching, and compliance support. If you missed any of these websites, don't worry. You can go and catch this episode on Catch Up or go to www.thecaringview.co.uk and you can find all of our sponsors on there. Just click on their images and it will take you directly through to their website. Good evening, Mark, and how are you?
Yes, good evening, good evening. Yeah, not too bad, thank you. You?
I'm good. It's new wig week. I have my new wig now. My old one was starting to get a little bit, I don't know, tatty. It was falling apart. So I thought, I'll put my new wig on. And then I went and got it styled this weekend. And I felt a bit fabulous, actually, after I had it done. So I'm showing it off to everyone today. But yeah, no, I'm good. It's what, sorry?
Oh, it's good.
Stunning. It's very good.
It is. Do you know what? It is. I'm feeling my oats. I got on the lift at work this morning, and they've got like this big mirrored panel. And I got in the lift to go up to the office, and oh, who are you? I was like, oh, hello. No, I'm grand. I'd be better if the weather wasn't so bloody windy and naff. I'm all for autumn. My house is decked out now. My blankets are out. My cushions, my ornaments, all that sort of stuff. I am there, heating on and everything. But I just do not like the wind. It keeps blowing my reef off my front door. So once the wind's gone, I'll be better. Joined by two very, very great people today, and a great company, Care Ideals. And we're going to come through now and just do a quick introduction before we get into tonight's conversation. So, David Beattie, please tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
So I'm the owner and managing director of Care Ideals. We're a care business advisory service. So we're not your standard care consultancy. We're much more focused on the business side of care businesses, supporting them to improve profitability, marketing, advertising, increasing occupancy, increasing margins, training, management development. So we've done a lot of crisis management in the past, but it's not what we focus on now. It's much more about taking care businesses and making them better, but from a business perspective.
Wonderful, and great to have you on the show, David. Thank you for joining us.
I'm glad to be back after doing something similar with you guys about 3 or 4 months ago.
Great to have you here. And Lorna.
Hello, so I'm Lorna and I am the Chief Operating Officer at Care Ideals alongside David. He puts up with me on a daily basis. Thank you, David. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. I'm all right. But my background, I started in retail and business management. Always wanted to work in care, never quite got there for various reasons, and ended up in sort of at a point in life where I thought, I'm going to go into social work. And I did it. And then I used that sort of experience to go into the social care sector. I've worked hands-on on the floor, in a voluntary role in care homes, in the home care sector. I've worked in big franchise operations and home care offices. And then I came across Care Ideals and started in my role as a business advisor. So like David said, it's a really good opportunity to put lots of different skills to the test and to support people and to work with people for really positive change and to transform their business. But also not to lose sight of the fact that we are care, and that's what we do. We feel it. It's part of who we are. But yeah, it's a great opportunity, and I love working with the people that we do. And things like this give us an opportunity to share a little bit of our message. So thank you.
No, really looking forward to tonight's show, and I'm really glad that you're both here to discuss. So tonight we are talking about upskilling managers, and not just managers, the next generation of managers and leaders. We want to look around how we build that next generation of resilient leaders, and I love the word resilient in there. I think that word resilient is super important. Resiliency doesn't get spoken off enough, and I think it's great that we're going to try and address that tonight by developing positive culture, compliance and commercial performance. So I'm going to hand over to Mark to get us started, but I know there's about a million things that we want to discuss tonight. So if you are watching tonight and you've got any questions, pop them into the chat and we will address them as we go through tonight's show. Over to you, Mark.
Yes, thank you very much. And David, Lorna, thank you for giving up your Tuesday evening to join us. So like Adam said, there is a lot that we want to get through. So I know that we don't really script anything, but we'll try and make sure we've got enough time for all the various bits and pieces. So I guess before we begin I think we know there's a gap in the market in terms of our current leaders and managers and the next generation coming through. And obviously you two are doing a lot of work with care organisations, with managers, with leaders. What are some of the things that you're seeing at the moment in terms of what are the gaps that we need to be discussing tonight?
I think definitively what very, very clearly is when you're talking about resilient leaders, for a leader to be properly resilient, they've got to be skilled, they've got to be trained, they've got to have that background and that foundation to be able to weather the good times as well as the bad times, because there's going to be bad times. And it's about understanding specifically what their role is as a business leader, because at the end of the day, these care services are businesses, and they've got to understand how to run the business effectively, how to create a good culture, how to think ahead, 6 months ahead, 12 months ahead, 24 months ahead, as opposed to things being very reactive and just dealing with what's happening here and now. So I think it's about that resilient element, is about making sure that they've got the necessary skills to be able to take things forward. I think beyond that, it's also, you've got lots of, let's say, registered managers in their late 50s, early 60s. And has that been taken into account across all of social care, when a lot of these people think about retiring or do retire, what's the plan for when these people do retire? And what's being done to upskill senior carers or deputy managers, etc., to take over that banner. Going back to 2023, the turnover rate amongst registered managers, and this from a Skills for Care report, was 23.2%, which is a staggeringly high number across all of social care, to have that number of registered managers leaving for whatever reason. Maybe some of them left because they had a better opportunity. Maybe some of them left because they were dismissed, or whatever it happens to be. But that's a staggeringly high number, and that has a dramatic impact on all of those different care services or care businesses, to be without the leader, the focal point of the service, for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, however long it happens to be. And we see this time and time again. And some incredibly committed, enthusiastic people who don't really understand what their role is as a business manager, because you can't get away from that. These are businesses, and people need to run it as a business. And I think, with the best will in the world, if the focus is care and compliance, the business will suffer, profitability will go down, care delivery will suffer, the residents or the clients or the service users, they will suffer as well. So the starting point has to be about run an effective business, make sure that you've got a culture based on accountability, and don't just think about what's happening immediately in front of you. Plan for the next 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, whatever it happens to be, and stick to that plan, follow that plan, amend it as you need to, but make sure that you're not just looking at what's immediately in front of you. Think further down the line.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I definitely agree there with the forward planning and the business planning and bits and pieces. And I think sometimes, we've got a lot of managers that come in from being a carer to a senior to a deputy upwards, and that's not something that's necessarily taught. And even if you do, a leadership qualification, you're not taught about business planning. So if you work for a large corporate organization, then you're probably absolutely fine, because that probably comes as part of that kind of upskilling and that expectation. But if you're a standalone, and we know the majority of companies are small and medium, actually you probably haven't got that infrastructure. And I do see a lot of managers asking for business plans for whatever reason, whether that's because they need it for themselves, whether that's because they need it to put towards tenders and bits and pieces. But there's definitely a lack in that awareness there of that business plan. I guess you mentioned there about resilience a few times, Lorna. I'll come to you. How can we ensure managers are building those resilient skills? And I guess there's an element there about you can prep them as much as you can, but there's always going to be something that might side throw at you, for a better word.
Yeah, always happens. So I think the resilience in the sector is there. We know this because we got through COVID. There's staffing shortages, funding pressures, and you can see that the resilience has kept services going. But individually, resilience, we often see resilience as the ability to bounce back. Like something's happened. There's I've had a bad day or a bad week, or something's happened and I've bounced back. And I think it's really sort of getting into the mindset of not necessarily just bouncing back, but it's about adapting and learning and innovating, so that potentially we can stop that from happening the next time, and we can deal with that in a different way. Because we talk about lessons learned in other situations in the sector, but not necessarily when it comes to ourselves or our managers. It's often this, when we talk about it from a management perspective, how do they sort of develop that, and how do we sort of build that into our teams? Well, we're looking for resilience. We want people to be adaptable. You have to be adaptable in our roles, because like you've already said, you walk into work in the morning and you think you're doing one thing, something else kicks off or happens, and before you know it, you're all over the place, and you get to the end of the day and you've not had your lunch, and you think, where's that day gone? So it's around being adaptable, but it's around how you recover and how you stay safe. So I think there's two elements to it. I think there's an element of how you stay safe personally and how you develop that resilience. Because having been there, I've been a manager in the sector where I've I've got to that point of burnout where I've had to switch my phone off sometimes, and I've had to, take that time out of emails and things to look after myself. But it's developing that within yourself, but also within your teams, passing that on to your teams, that we look after ourselves, because if we're not right and ready, how can we expect our teams to do the same? And sort of really then looking at the demands across the team, because again, in this sector, there's a lot of emotional demands, there's a lot of time demands, and it's a highly stressed environment sometimes, as well as all the sort of positive rewards. But we need to prepare them. We need to look at sort of self-care practices, and that starts with the individual. So there's a lot of individual work that we can do, but from the actual team perspective, it's really looking at supportive cultures. How do we embed a supportive culture so that people are okay to say, I'm not okay, and this is really something I'm struggling with, I need some help. And then sort of looking at other tools around it. I had a really good supervision recently, and I was supporting someone with, and at the end of it, they said, so this is what a real supervision feels like. It wasn't a tick box, it was genuine, it was, how are you? Not, have you done this task, tick. So it's things around that, and really sort of embedding that within your team. So there's a personal part, but there's also that team part. And really, I think that starts with the supportive culture, bedding that in so that it's the norm.
Adam, any thoughts there around resilience or what we've spoken about?
So, probably a million things. I just want to come back to David's point around accountability. Oh my God, people need to understand what accountability is, and it needs to be embedded through not just social care, just through life. I mean, the amount of people who just go on social media nowadays and say what they want and think there's going to be no repercussions, and it's no, come on, let's have some accountability. But especially in within our leadership and management structures, I mess up quite frequently, and the first thing I do is go, oh my God, I've fucked up. I've messed. I'm not supposed to have done that, or I did it wrong, or I shouldn't have done that, or I was supposed to do this and I didn't do that. I don't do it all too often. I'm an amazing guy. I'm perfect, almost. Honestly, I am like the closest to perfect can be. But when I do mess up, I do say that I've messed up. And you just want the rest of your team to be able to do that. You just want the rest of your team to be able to go, do you know what? I've not really done what I'm supposed to have done, or I'm not achieving what I want to be achieving now. Not excuse. Well, it's because this and because of that, and because they haven't done that, and they've not done this, and these people haven't done that. You want people to be able to go, actually, yeah, I'm not performing to my best, and I want to get better. Can I get some support? And that for me speaks volumes. I would rather a manager or someone in a leadership position come and tell me that than feed me a platter of BS, thinking that's going to be okay because I'm going to go blame everyone else for the mistakes. Whereas actually, I don't want to blame anyone. I just want to support people to get better. You'd said something around the newer generations coming in and how we've got this aging population. I'm gonna label it, and I don't really care. Gen X and Boomers, you're on your way out. Like the Gen X and Boomers of management are on their way out. And then I sort of had like a nihilistic moment, like an epiphany, where I was like, yeah, millennials, like the new thing. And I'm like, oh my God, like the youngest millennial will be 50 in 3 years' time. I mean, that is terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying, that the youngest millennial. So yeah, millennials, we're on our way out too. The Gen Z are the ones that are going to be leading the way. But the thing is, the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha, which will come after Gen Z, which, I mean, they're already here. We're already counting Gen Beta now. But the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha, they've got a totally different outlook on life. They know their way. Yeah. Don't you talk to me like that. No one talks to me like that. They're not being childish. They're not being sensitive. They know they deserve more than to be spoken to like something you've stood on. They don't want to work every hour under the sun because you want your business to be profitable. They do want to work some weekends, and they do want some weekends off. They do want to be able to achieve what they want to do, but they also want to have a life outside of work. And I envy them because they're in this great position where they're going to create this future for other people where they are respected in the workplace. Those are the people we need to be bringing into the management positions now. The people who have those values, those morals, those ethics, because we're sorely lacking in it. And I think totally needed. And then just around your self-care, Lorna, super important. And I would just advocate for managers to start seeking therapy. And I don't mean this because we are weak people. I don't mean this because it's a cool thing to do, but I'm very open and honest. I see a shrink now every single week. I see therapists every single week, and it's the best thing I've ever done. Well, it's not the best thing I've ever done. I've done amazing things in my time, but it's a great thing that I do now because I get to go and speak to someone every single week and go, do you know what, this stuff's really pissing me off. I'm really struggling with this. I feel really low this week. I'm really struggling with this. This is really affecting me, and I need someone to talk to who is completely objective, isn't going to judge me, and I can get this off my chest. We went through COVID as managers. You know, I was running a home and a domiciliary agency during COVID. I know how tough it was. I had my moments. I broke ribs doing CPR on people who did not need CPR doing on them. The most traumatic experiences we've ever had. And we've never processed that because the world just caught up and carried on. And we all just sort of got on with it. And everyone's like, everything's fine now. And I'm sure there's a good portion of us out there living with PTSD. Get yourself into therapy. Invest in it. You know, it's what? I pay 40 quid a week. It's what? A couple of bottles of wines, or it's a night out each week. Which would you rather do? Go out and drink and do that, or actually go and try and fix some of these problems that we've got, or just go and talk to someone to clear your head? It's totally worth it. And I would fully recommend it. Self-care is super important. I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, you just mentioned then about speaking to people, and you also mentioned something prior to that about when you make mistakes. It's kind of, for me, the same thing. People don't like to often admit that they've made a mistake because there's this sort of fear culture of people are going to think I'm terrible. And it's also the same about talking and saying that we're not feeling okay, or that we need a little bit of help in our roles. Been there and done that. And actually, we need, like you've just said, we need to be more open and honest and say that's fine, but we can help and we can share. So yeah, definitely an advocate for self-care.
Brilliant. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to bring this to the comments, because every now and then we get some really good comments of like really sort of important questions and everything tonight. But Polar Knight, who joins us quite regularly, says, I love this show, and the men's cams this week is every stage of beard growth.
I'm glad it only says the men.
Oh, I can imagine it, like, you know, those sort of graphs you get of like the full moon to like quarter moon to like half moon, just our faces showing the beard growth. Thank you very much, Polar Knights. Yeah, no, thank you for that insight, Lorna. Really, really, really valuable. Okay, so
could I just
Dave,
quickly,
please do.
Sorry, just Adam, what you were saying earlier in terms of that accountability, where you have a you've got your managers who've become carer, senior carer, deputy manager, then manager. They haven't had that management training, leadership training,
Yes.
culture, emotional intelligence, all of those different elements. And for many of them, they get promoted into this post and they're terrified. And I'm not just saying that. I've spoken to registered managers who've said to me, I was offered this job, they threw the old registered manager out. I was then promoted the following Monday. I had no idea what I was doing. And for the first 12 months of this job, I came to work every day and I was terrified. So if you're already terrified coming to work every day and then you do something wrong, you make a mistake. Whatever it is that you do, everybody makes mistakes, but you make a mistake. It's really, really difficult at that point to then kind of say, well, actually, you know, I messed this up. This is on me. Because you're already terrified and you already feel quite overwhelmed in terms of what you're doing day in and day out. And you then make this mistake, and it's difficult to then say, well, actually, that was my fault. Whereas by investing in your managers and giving them those skills and that resilience and that foundation to be an effective business manager, the cost of providing that training would pay for itself 1,000 times over.
And I suppose, and a really, really important point, because Mark, you and I have spoken about this many times, where you're a fantastic carer, you're amazing at what you do, you can be our next manager. They haven't got a clue what the regulations are. They haven't got a clue around leading a team. They haven't got a clue about this. They haven't got a clue about that. They don't know finances. You know, they don't know any of that sort of stuff, but they're a really great carer. And a really great carer does not make a really great manager. You know, you've got to have a totally different skill set. But let's take it all the way back to your actual carers, and you think, right, well, you're going to induct this new person for me today, and I want you to induct this new team member. And then 3 months later, you go, well, this new team member's not been inducted, great, have they? Because that person's just not inducted them properly. They've not done what I need them to do. But actually, what training do we provide our team to induct new team members? Because leadership for me isn't a leadership. Leadership is different to management. Management is your senior management, it's your deputy managers, it's your clinical managers. Your managers manage stuff. They don't manage people, they manage stuff. Your leaders lead people, and anybody in an organization can be a leader, whether you're a care assistant teaching a new care assistant who's coming into the role, whether you're doing whatever, you could be a leader. And actually, we don't provide leadership skills for nearly anybody as much as possible. I'm doing some interviews at one of our nursing homes this week. And I said to one of the care team today, I was like, why don't you get involved in the interviews? They're like, what? I can do that. And I was like, well, yeah, because first off, you're working with these people day in, day out. So you're going to get to meet them, get to know them. But secondly, it's going to give you opportunity to learn and observe skills that you don't normally get access to in your role. So I can develop and train and support, and you can grow and go, actually, I want to do more of this. And great. How do we get you there? You know, how do we train you to do more of these things? You know, unless we give you those opportunities, you're never going to be able to get to that point where you want to progress and go further, because you're not going to have that experience. So actually, as leaders ourselves, we need to change the way we lead before we can bring these new leaders in, because we're just not providing them with that foundational level, like you say, David, of knowledge to actually achieve the role. And then, like you said, David, they're going to go, well, actually, I've messed up, but I'm not going to tell anyone because they're just going to sack me because I obviously don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a tough job, isn't it? It is a tough job.
I think for me as well, there's an element there of self-responsibility in terms of a new manager to reflect on kind of the day or the week and what's gone well, what's not gone well, and how you can grow from that. And I do feel like as a new manager in this generation of the digital era, is so much easier to do with some of the tools that are out there. It's just knowing what tools are out there in terms of, you know, one of the reasons we set up the Care Review was because there just wasn't a platform to connect people and to have those resources and bits and pieces. And now there is so many doing what we do, which is fantastic because, and I always say, you know, I wish this was around when I very first stepped into a registered manager's role, because actually it would have helped me so much with those conversations, being able to contact somebody and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I think you've got things, you know, like Google LMS, where you can just type in your problem and it makes podcasts and it makes resources and documentation and classroom support tools, so that you can do quizzes or bits and pieces for self-growth. But I think, and it leads me into kind of the culture piece of the organisation. I also think there's an element there where you need to develop that confidence in yourself that you're not going to know everything when you step into that management role. And I know I've said this 101 times, like I came from being a carer at 17 and I was in management at 20. You know, I had no life skills really. All I'd done is school and college, and then before I know it, I'm leading a team of people with really complex needs. I just went with what I would want if that was my brother or sister, and treated the people that I worked with how I'd been taught by my parents to treat people. And when I look back, yeah, some of that was absolutely great. Some of it wasn't, because I didn't deal with some of the poor performance because I'd never had to deal with poor performance and bits and pieces. But I think when I look back kind of across more of the last 10 years, I think the biggest thing that I think is my strength is the honesty about my abilities and what I can and can't do. And I know I've said about this on the show before, finances are not my strongest point. I don't find them entertaining. I don't find them enjoyable. Yeah, sure, I have to go and sit with our SLT once a month and talk about, you know, the 3 regions that I oversee and the 3 budgets and what we're doing and the forecast and bits and pieces. Do I enjoy it? No. Do I feel like I've learned anything from it? Yes. But I think there's that honesty about, this isn't my skill set, but yet I've got people in my team that some of them have done accounting, some of them have, you know, come from other industries, and I utilize them. But there is that fear factor in organizations that you should know everything, especially when you get to kind of a registered manager or an operations manager or a regional manager role. And I think for anybody listening that thinks, oh, actually, I don't have that support, or I don't feel that I can talk openly, is there's so many other care companies out there that will embrace that. And actually, sometimes you have to think about whether you're in the right company for you. And I know if I was in my organization and they were saying, you can't lean on those people and it's all got to be you and you can't bring notes to these finance meetings, I'd be at the door, because I'd be stressed, you know, the night before. I'd probably be stressed I'd do the meeting and I'd be stressed, panicking, prepping for the next one that I knew was coming up in a month's time. So I definitely think you need to create a culture there with your team so that they know that you don't know everything, so you can pull on their strengths and their weaknesses. And I guess my question is around, how do we build that culture within our team? But also, aside from the honesty point, just a positive culture in general.
I think really important with culture. It's about accountability, but accountability doesn't mean that it's draconian in any way. It doesn't mean that it's a form of punishment. It's we know what the standards are. The standards are accepted across the group. And when we don't meet those standards, we're open and honest enough and we say, you know what, we didn't quite get that right. But importantly, this is how we're going to fix it. And it's not about blaming X, Y, Z. It's about where are the shortfalls and what do we need to do to make sure that doesn't happen again. But it's something that needs to be embedded. It's something that you've got to change your mindset. You can talk about, well, we want to change the culture, but unless you actively work to change that culture, or if it's the entire care business, if you don't actively work to make it run as a business instead of a service, you're fooling yourself because you're not going to achieve what you need to achieve. Culture is exactly the same. It's got to be embedded. It's got to be part of what you're doing day in and day out. Everybody's got to understand what it is.
Oh, David, can you still hear us? It's like you're leaving us on a cliffhanger.
Oh, you disappeared.
Oh, that is.
We can't hear you, David, at this second. Oh. Lorna, do you want to jump in?
Yeah. So for me, I think, like just to sort of follow up on what David had said, culture changes and how we address that. It's not a sort of real sort of quick sweeping thing. It's small everyday actions, and I think it's really easy when we're in the sort of thick of things to forget that actually it might just be something really small that we can embed into the culture of the organisation. Just saying thank you, letting people know that they're respected, and that's not just your staff out on the floor. It's with your sort of peers and people above you. And I think it's really working together to feel supported. I think as organisations, we can really sort of look at culture as not just a nice to have, but it's a performance driver. So again, it's a performance driver for your people and your teams from a positive sort of people management perspective. But as David said, from a business perspective as well, because we look at the business side of things and how to transform that, it can have real positive impact. And when we look at culture, it directly reduces turnover if you've got good culture. It sort of introduces and improves recruitment processes. People are happy to work there, and it boosts morale. So your team are happy. Things always feel that little bit easier when you're working in a place with a really good, positive culture. Encouraging teamwork. I've been in situations in the past when I've worked in a team where the culture really was like, don't talk to that team, don't talk to that person, you do your own thing, you do you. And you can feel quite isolated in a very big business, in a very big organization sometimes. And it's sort of smashing down those barriers of, not being able to talk to each other and outside your own organizations. Quite a few years ago, I won't tell you how many because then you'll figure out how old I am. Quite a few years ago, I went to a registered managers meeting network, and no one wanted to talk because if we shared or we talked about things, we were giving away business secrets. And it was like, no, we're here to help each other and guide each other and support. It's not, we're not MI5. We're not trying to steal your data. What we're doing. So I suppose it's just really sort of pushing that and don't let things fester, I think, in teams. I'm very open and forthright, so is David. And things just have to be sort of addressed and move on, draw a line. And I think from a culture point of view, again, it's just, for me, it's big things, but actually it's shaped by small everyday actions. It's who we are, it's what we do. And really sort of thinking about your leaders as well. Your leaders grow when your teams grow. So let's look at both and get the benefits for the client at the end of the day as well. The outcomes for them are even better when the teams are performing. So it's a bit of an overall.
I mean, David, we'll come back to you in just a sec, but I think you both spoke about change.
Sorry to interrupt. Should I just go? Can I move to another room? I don't know what's happening with the signal here.
More than welcome to.
Okay, so if I just log off and then I'll log back on.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
You both spoke about change, and I say this quite often, but change is like grief. You know, change is like you suffer a bereavement and you go through these stages. You know, you've got that denial. No, I don't want this. No, I can't accept this. This isn't right. And then you get into pain, and it's like, well, this really hurts, and I don't really want this. And then you become angry, and you're angry because of what's going on. And then if we're talking about grief, we talk about depression and sadness. But then we also get that bit of reflection and loneliness, and okay, I need to really sort this out because I'm not feeling great. And then after that, you start accepting it a little bit more, and that pain starts to subside. And you go, maybe I can get through this, and maybe the change isn't too bad. Maybe if I can get through where I want to, then I'm going to be okay. And then you start to recover, and you start going, well, actually, yeah, because I can really see the benefits of this now. And then you accept it. You accept the grief, you accept the bereavement, or you accept the change that you've gone through. And there's the similarities between both processes are exactly the same, because grief at the end of the day is just a change in lifestyle because you've lost someone in your life, and it's a change that you then have to work through. So it's sensible that the stages of change are the same as stages of grief. So I think if we understand what people might go through their emotions and their mentality when you're trying to change something within your service and trying to change something within your team, it allows you to prepare and manage that better as well. It allows you to understand what they're going through, so you don't get mad at people when they're sat there going, nope, I do not like this. This is not going to work. I hate this. And you're not going to sit there and going, oh my God, just listen to me. It's amazing. You go, I understand. Actually, it's going to be quite scary for you, and I'm going to listen to you all the way through this. When you get to reflection, when you get to like stage 5, let me know and I'll reflect with you, and it's going to be amazing. But right now, go shout, go scream, go do what you need to do, because we're going to work through this. I'm not saying this is definite, but we are going to have to work through this, and you understand that, and you'll help them through. But you need to be able to do that to change and break those cultures within your organization. There's definitely this mentality that this is the way it's always been done, so that's the way I'm going to do it. And that's where we get this sort of bad behaviors, these learned behaviors within leadership that are not beneficial to us at all. Have I waffled enough, hoping that David has joined us again?
He's back. I think just listening to you there, Adam, I think we have to acknowledge that actually, if you're trying to change a culture, that's not an overnight job. And I think if you're a new manager trying to change that culture, it can really wear you down. And I just think about kind of one of the services I oversee. I've been with the company 4 years. It's only really in the last kind of 6 months that I've really hand on heart felt, actually, we're in a really good place now. Like, I feel confident that, the CQC walk through the door, the staff will say what they need to say, we can evidence what we need to evidence. That's been 3.5 years of solid change. There's been a new registered manager in that service in that time. But I think, even if there hadn't been a registered manager, you've got staff that you need to performance manage out, new staff that come in, staff that tell you whatever in an interview, and then you've got to, they don't align with your values, you've got to let them go. So it's that churn that you don't necessarily see. So I think sometimes we think, oh, let's change the culture and it'll be a 6-month job. Actually, sometimes it's really so much longer. And I think just before we bring David in, something you spoke about, Lorna, was around that isolation. And I think as a registered manager, even if you've got a deputy, be one of the loneliest jobs there is. I think because you have to performance manage your team, you've got that direction, you've got the pressure from above that you can't necessarily put on your team, but you've also got to befriend them at the same time, because you need those shifts covering at the weekend, and somebody's going sick and you need them to pick up overtime. And it is a really fine balance of juggling the two. And quite often registered managers aren't supported. I think it comes back to what Adam was saying about having somebody to talk to. And I would say that, a bit of self-promotion, we do have a WhatsApp group that is full of registered managers, people that are no longer in registered manager roles, they're in regional roles. Now some of them are consultants that we started because there wasn't kind of a place to think, I'm working on this and I don't really understand it, or the government had just announced this and what the F am I meant to be doing and what's everybody doing to kind of digest this. So if anybody wants to join that, you're more than welcome. If you work as a registered manager, if you're a consultant, you too, anybody really, it's just to provide a platform really to link in and support one another, because I think sometimes it's just having a point of contact sometimes when you feel like you can't swim and get your head above the water, that somebody just reassures you that actually you're doing a good job and it's all right.
Totally agree. It's very, very much needed.
Anything on culture change, David, that I appreciate that you haven't heard what we've said, but go for it.
I think culture change is like, I got the end of what you were saying, Mark. In terms of changing culture, it can be a really long process. It's easy to change paperwork. It's fairly easy to bring in a new computer system or change your electronic care plan system, whatever it happens to be. But culture is very different, because there will be a culture, and that's what people will be used to doing, responding, behaving, etc. But to get them to change in a different way, that's something that's very different. And people will revert back to what they know. And to get them out of those bad habits, to get them to think in a different way and to change their mindset, that's the most difficult part and probably the most time-consuming part of any type of crisis management or turnaround management, is trying to change the culture. It's easy, like I said, it's easy to change the paperwork, bring in new documents, change your policies, all of that type of stuff, refurbish the kitchen or whatever you're trying to do. But to get people to behave in a different way and to think in a different way, and for some people to realize that some of their habits aren't great and they need to change those habits and those behaviors, can be really difficult as well. So definitely with culture change, it's a concerted long-term effort to make that change. And then once you've done that, you've got to embed it. And the only way you can embed it is by repetition, consistency, and accountability.
Can't argue with that. I literally can't argue with that. And I think if anyone is struggling to change the culture in their organization, just listen back to what Lorna and David have said tonight, because that's your starting point. You know, those are your starting blocks to get that culture change in there. And if you don't think your culture needs to change in your organization, you're wrong. Culture can always get better. Culture can always improve. You're not perfect. You're not me. No, I'm joking. I am joking. No one is perfect. You are going to have to change your culture. If it makes you all feel any better, I reflect every single week on me as a person, as a manager, as a leader. I change parts of myself. Just because I've taught leadership and management around the country doesn't mean I know everything. In fact, probably hardly know anything at all. Everyone learns every single day. So if you're sat there thinking, well, actually, I don't need any of this because I am a shit hot manager and I get nothing wrong, you're probably part of the problem. And I would just say politely, do a bit of self-reflection, you know, put that Christina Aguilera song on from Mulan, you know, who is this girl I see looking back at me, you know, reflect on yourself and think to yourself, have there been moments where I could have been the problem at work? Have there been moments where someone said to me, Adam, you spoke to me like this and I really didn't appreciate it, and I've just gone, whatever. Actually, could I have been the problem? Has my lack of ability to listen to people or to encourage change or encourage suggestions or challenging within my team, have I allowed my team to challenge me enough? You know, have I promoted some positive conflict? Have I promoted people to be able to question why it is what we're doing? Are they curious? Are they allowed to be curious? You know, if you're not allowing any of that, potentially you're the problem. And I mean that with all the best intentions. It's just hard pill to swallow sometimes. Let's talk succession planning. Mark and I have this mindset that we want to train our team to leave us, or treat them so well they don't want to go. And by that we mean we want to train people. One of the first things I ask people when they come into our organization, if I'm interviewing them, is, where do you want to be in 5 years? Like, literally, how long have I got you for? Are you going to be here in 5 years, or are you going to be a manager somewhere else? Because I need to know, not because I don't want to employ you, but I'm going to help you get you there. Like, I am going to help you get to that point in 5 years' time, because I know in 5 years' time I need to replace you or start looking for your replacement like 4.5 years beforehand. You know, I need to start thinking about, when do I replace you? How do I get you to where you want to be? Because you're going to be the best person you can be while you're with me. And that's what I want to do. If you don't want to progress and you don't want a new position, absolutely fine. I'm going to treat you so bloody well you don't want to leave here, because it's going to be the best job you've ever got. And for me, there's those two types of employee that we've got in our organization. Those who don't want to go anywhere, which is amazing, fabulous. Those people that do want to go somewhere, amazing, fabulous. There's no sort of nastiness on either side. You're both amazing. You're both great. But how do we really work on that succession planning? Because succession planning isn't just about you're leaving and we need someone to replace you. Succession planning is, I'm going on holiday for 2 weeks and I do not want to come back to 2 weeks of work. Like, I don't want to come back to 2 weeks of work. I need my team to be able to cope without me. They need to be able to know what to do and how to do things. And jokingly, we had this conversation offline before we came on. And I said, I've got no qualms around seeing a manager sat at a desk or walking around without a clipboard. If the whole home is running smooth, if the whole service is running smooth and amazing, and that manager looks like they're doing nothing, they're doing a really good job, because the rest of their team know what to do and are doing it amazingly. And that manager can go on holiday and come back after 2 weeks and not have loads of work to do because everyone else is doing what they need to. Now, I know that sounds like utopia to a lot of people. So, David, Lorna, how the hell do we start getting there?
I think a big part of that is allowing your staff to make mistakes. You make mistakes as a manager, as a senior leader, or whatever it is. You will have made mistakes during your career. Your staff will make mistakes, but I think it's about them understanding that you're giving them additional responsibility to help upskill them. And that if they do make mistakes, it's not a bad thing. They won't make that mistake again. They made it once, they won't make it again. But for them to also understand that if they do make a mistake, it's not a bad thing. And the more confident they become in their own roles, or in taking on this additional responsibility, the easier your job becomes. And having people around you who can do your job or parts of your job, etc., is not a bad thing, because everybody's ultimately can be replaced, but your responsibility as a leader is to help your team grow, and not to be afraid or to be scared of them growing and them developing. It's allowing them to develop, spread their wings, etc., etc. And when I say spread their wings, I don't mean necessarily leave, but for them just to grow in their roles.
Yeah.
And the more confident they are and the more comfortable they are, the better the whole service will run.
I think it's a little bit of that sort of, we're coming back to culture again, and sort of follow up on what David said. So there's sometimes a culture of, and I think you mentioned it, I don't know if it was Adam or Mark, but you mentioned about we've always done it like that. I remember asking a question quite a few years ago, if in the office, would someone like to come out and write a care plan with me? We're doing a new assessment, and everyone said, well, we can't do that because that's the manager's job. Why is that only my job? Why can you not do that? Because you read these care plans, and when we do reviews and we work on those care plans, why can the carers not be involved in that? Because they support that person, and the client's involved in that because they are the person. And I think it's around understanding, and again, it's like getting that message across that it's okay to give that away, because we have this understanding in our role sometimes that that's my job, I have to keep that. Well, actually, no. Empower your team, involve them in it. They're part of that journey and part of that process and that cycle. And I've done it with teams before where I've sort of said, look, you're going to do this with me, and we're going to work together, and I'm going to coach you through that. It might be something like writing a care plan. We're going to work on that together, and at the end of it, you're going to see this care plan, and you're going to read that and think, wow, did we do that? Did I do that? And then it means that the next time I'm, as a manager at that point, if I'm really busy, I don't have to be sort of stressed out working till 10 o'clock at night. Someone else can pick up some work during the day, so that actually the workload is even. We're all a little bit less stressed and a little bit less busy, but actually the person that I've entrusted that to feels really like, wow, hang on a minute, this person trusts me. And that comes back to culture again, having that sort of environment where you feel like your team are able to trust you and you can trust them. I think that's really important. Giving that away. It's really easy to keep a task and say, that's a manager's job. It doesn't say in your job description, you are the only person that ever must do this. Do not give that job away under no circumstance. But it does say that you should invest and develop your team. And I think really that's where the skill set is. It's not upskilling your team, and investing in your team isn't just a tick in the box. it's future-proofing the business, it's future-proofing the service, and that's what keeps us safe. That's what keeps us consistent. And it's, you know, and like you said, I've been away. I've been in both positions where I've been on holiday, and I've many moons ago, and I've had my phone, and I'm like, do I need to check my emails? Do I need to check the texts or my WhatsApps? Oh gosh, can I really relax? But actually, when I get back to that, and I think, well, how did I manage that at that time? All those years ago, very poorly, because I kept those jobs to myself. And did that end well for me? Not really. I felt terrible. Start to give that away. Trust is massively important. Trust your teams and invest in them, train them the right way to do things, and then you can support and they can support you. So I think it's hugely important.
I think that trust brings empowerment as well, doesn't it, though, that staff then want to take on more and do more. And I think it comes a bit of a rounded conversation. It comes with that honesty that actually you can't do everything and you need to take some of that additional load from you. But equally, I'm doing it because I want to see you get from A to B. And I think sometimes there is a fear that you're doing yourself out of a job. And I don't know whether, I like to think I do succession planning well, but I don't know whether that's because I don't stay with companies. Typically, the one I've got now, as long as I've ever been there, typically it's about 3 years, and then I'm kind of a bit bored and I move on. But even now, like in my company, like the 2 registered managers, I'm very open with them that you'll probably be here longer than I will be. One of you needs to be taking, if you want it, need to be upskilling, or both of you can, but ready for when I go, or one of the other regional managers, that you can take my job because I know that you can do it. I think it is worth noting that sometimes people might not want to upskill, and that's absolutely fine. And you can take them through, you know, another program of empowering them in bits and pieces. But I don't think we should ever worry about that you're going to be done out of a job. A, if you're a registered manager, it's part of, you know, CQC, like there has to be a registered manager, so they're not going to be able to get rid of you there. B, you know, I've worked, you know, NHS pilots, local authority, friends of the civil service. There's always a job. Like nobody manages to offload some of their work and think, oh my God, I've got like a spare day now. Like there's always something else. Like you just end up doing something else. So it just means that you can probably do more with your team, more with the people you support. The things that we probably went into management to actually do as opposed to the day-to-day. So I think if you think, oh my God, I'm getting myself out of the job, and the director or the senior team are going to think, what is he doing? Chances are they'll probably just give you a bit more work, or if they don't, make yourself busy doing more leadership stuff and more impact with the people you support. Get out on the floor more and go out for the day with the people you support and get that kind of experience and the voices and the feedback from those that you support in your team. Because like you said earlier, Lorna, the ones that are working the work are the ones that have all those ideas of how you're going to shape that culture in the company.
I think it's also really important not to be scared of people who could be or who are better than you, because actually I've worked with some brilliant managers across the years, and there's one that sort of always stands out to me. I knew she could have stepped into my job role tomorrow. If I disappeared, she would have done it, and she would have absolutely smashed it out the park. And I remember at sort of recruitment stage, there was a couple of questions being asked, you know, oh gosh, you know, does it not worry you? And I'm like, no, this is fantastic. Bring this person on board, because we can go the extra mile with another person like that. Two great minds working together. And that's what you need to not be worried about that. You know, sometimes there's that little, again, that fear, it comes back to fear. But again, if there's honesty and trust within a team, you can have someone as good as you or better, and that just future-proof and enhances your business even more. So don't be frightened of that either.
And it goes back to culture. So sorry, Mark. It goes back to culture again, Lorna. What you were saying there, that if you've got somebody who's a superstar or a potential superstar, to not feel intimidated by that person's ability, or that, you know, they're going to take my job, et cetera, use them and develop them, and 2 of you performing at a really high level is better than 1 of you performing at a really high level. And the more, if somebody's that good and you're not helping them progress and develop, they're probably going to leave. If they're that good and they're that skilled, etc. But by you giving them the additional responsibility and the accountability and so on and so forth, it develops them. It helps your care business or whatever it is, your dom care business, your care home, etc. And when they do leave, which potentially they will because they're that good, they're only going to be thinking good things about you and that care business, and will say good things about you and that care business.
And I was just thinking there, it kind of comes back to what we were talking about business planning. Actually, if you're planning for the next year, 5 years, 10 years, actually, you can probably look at some kind of restructure of what the team looks like to bring those people into a different role. So there could be two managers. One's just a registered and one's just a, you know, if it's not the deputy manager, a local or something different within your organisation. So, Adam, any thoughts from you? I'm very conscious of time. I've got a few comments.
Yeah, so I want to come to the comments in a minute, but I was just making some notes of what everyone was saying, and it took me back to my old leadership training days. And, you know, we've spoken tonight about trust. We've spoken tonight about accountability. We've spoken tonight about achieving what we want to achieve. We've spoken tonight about addressing problems. We've spoken tonight about culture. And I've always been a firm believer of the dysfunctional team model. And I don't know whether you guys are familiar with it, but it's that 5-step model that it starts with trust. Because if you don't have trust with your team, they're just going to hide mistakes. They're not going to want to listen to you. They're not going to want to talk to you. They're just going to hide away everything that's going wrong. And if you get people who don't trust you, you then don't have conflict. You've got fear of people wanting to address stuff. So that way you avoid problems and you avoid the bad stuff that's going on. You avoid bad behaviors. You don't want to have those difficult conversations within your team. You don't want to ask people why. You don't want to do some digging into it. And then the less conflict you've got, the less commitment you've got from your team. So, and I'm not going to ask people to show their hands because I can't see you here, but I can imagine these hands going up. How often have you sat there after a meeting and gone, Jesus Christ, we just talked, pardon my blasphemy there, you know, sue me God. You know, you'll sit there in your meetings and go, oh my God, we're just talking about the same thing over and over again. Like we're just discussing the same thing over and over and over and over. And that is a lack of commitment. That is a lack of commitment from your team because you don't have trust. You've not got trust, so people don't want to address conflict. And because they don't have conflict, they're not committed to you. And then the less commitment you've got, the more avoidance of accountability you have. And that's when people start going, well, actually, I don't care that they're doing a bad job. Let's just leave them to it because I don't really want to discuss it. You'll have people in your team doing really stellar jobs who are working their socks off and watching people do a really crap job and have no sort of repercussions for it. No performance management, no sort of you need to pick up and you start taking on all their work for them because you need to make sure that everything's being done. And the less accountability you've got, the more you have people going, actually, I only want to achieve for me. I only want to get to the results that I want. I don't see the whole team results. And if you don't follow those steps and you don't put all those things into place, your team is never going to achieve collective results. You're going to have that high turnover. You're going to have that selfish responsibility of, well, actually, I just want to leave here knowing that I've achieved something so I can go to my next job and I'll be absolutely fine. Well, good for you, bully for you, but you're leaving home and leaving behind a load of people and a load of team members and a load of people who use your services. You know, let's work together as a team to do that. But why should that person do that if there is an avoidance of accountability or other people are getting away with what they want to do? Because I am just going to protect myself and I am just going to go off. I'm not going to blame them. I can't blame them for it because I've allowed that culture to exist, which is difficult because as leaders, as managers, we get on with our team and we don't want our team to go anywhere, but we have to have those difficult conversations. We have to be addressing performances where performances aren't great. We should be celebrating where they are, but you've got the rest of your team looking in going, well, actually, why should I go to the manager? Because they don't do anything about it. They don't talk to anyone. They don't address anything. And for me, it's not the only model of leadership out there. And I'm not saying it's the most perfect model of leadership out there, but it's a really good starting point if you feel like you've got a problem with your team at the moment. Patrick Lencioni, well, I'm butchering his name right now. Just Google the 5 functions of the team. You can get it on ebook. You can get it on paperback. Someone can borrow mine if you want. I've read it back to front about 5 times. But it's a really interesting way to sort of start that change of thought process as a leader within your group.
Can I just say quickly before you go to the comments on meetings? There is nothing wrong with developing a culture that if you are not getting anything from a meeting, that you can make a polite excuse and leave. And I say that to all of my team. And I know it started to ripple with some of the other teams in my organisation. And every year at Christmas into the new year, I always review all of the standing meetings that we have on like the reoccurring meetings and re-review who's there, who's attending, what's being discussed, are we, or the people that are going, getting anything from it? Do they need to come out? Else need to go in, or do we just need to cancel the meeting altogether? Because, like you said, there are I work with local authorities, and there are sometimes just so many meetings about a meeting, and there will be times when I message somebody in the background thinking, I swear we've discussed this for like the last six months. There is nothing wrong. Like, if you're not getting anything from it, invest your energy somewhere else.
Yeah.
But also be honest about what are we doing here? Like, what is the end result? Like, call me to the final meeting, send me an email, but I don't need to listen to an hour if you talk about the same thing that you spoke about last meeting, or to talk about an agenda that I've never seen the document, so stop talking about the document that's going to come.
Yeah.
And when the document's actually being signed off and blah, blah, blah. Because sometimes we just fill our days with crap otherwise. And at the end of the day, I think I've done nothing on my list because all I've done is listen to loads of other people. And yeah, so Christmas time, maybe not Christmas Day, perfect time though to think about what is in your diary. And if you do that now, actually you've got 3 months of forward thinking about what you want to put in your diary. You can carve some of that time out for yourself in there now.
Don't book meetings longer than an hour. In fact, don't book meetings longer than 45 minutes. You know, give yourself 15 minutes back in an hour. If you're going to have a half an hour meeting, make it 20 because you fill it with waffle. And don't be afraid, like Mark says, to cut them short. And as managers as well, don't be afraid to say to people, have you got everything that you were supposed to prepare for this meeting? Send them an agenda. Start your meeting. Have you got everything you need? No, I haven't. Right, I'm closing this meeting then. Because I need you to be prepared for this meeting. I am not wasting my time. You have an accountability as a person for this meeting. You knew what you were supposed to be doing. So we'll reconvene. I'll send another timeout and I'll expect you to be ready for that meeting there and then. Our time is too precious. Don't fill the hour and waffle your way through it if someone's not done what they need to do and you're not prepared for it. Close it, restart it at another point because the time is so precious. Right. To these comments and then final thoughts for everyone. Otherwise, we'll just be here all night long. And I don't want to be here all night long. I've got a Lego I want to continue building. So
he's not getting anything from this meeting anymore. He's going.
You are?
I said he's not getting anything anymore from this meeting. He's going.
Yeah. No, yeah, that is it. Boom. No. So Teresa has come in and said, this was from earlier on in the show, could not agree more, Mark. I find the issue is that not everyone sees the manager as a human, and changing that culture is tough. 100% agree. And it's that lack of seeing people as humans is really difficult sometimes. I know we want to achieve, and I know we've got KPIs and we've got goals, but people are people, and let's not forget that. We're in a job about people, aren't we? Culture is a tactic concept. That is why it is really difficult to change. Tina, you said good evening at 8:20. Tina, I'm going to reprimand you. You're late tonight. Where were you at the beginning of the show? So I think Tina's on catch up at this moment in time. Pete has said, Tina has spoken about situational leadership. So great principles to use with the team and empower them. If you don't know what situational leadership is, go and Google it. It will be eye-opening for you. Pete XR, fabulous name. I'm also thinking 360 degrees feedback as part of the succession. You're supposed to say process here. Would be really good. Love that idea. I love that idea. Lorna, David, any sort of ideas around 360 feedback?
I think it isn't something that your manager, leader, etc., should be afraid of. I think some managers avoid it because they don't want to give some of their staff the opportunity to criticize them. But it's a way that you can grow as a leader. And sometimes it can be a bit uncomfortable to go through that process. But it shouldn't be something that you look at in a defensive way. Look at it in terms of I can develop because of this. I can be better because of it. And again, it's part of that open culture, openness, transparency, etc. And as long as it's delivered in a respectful way, I think 360-degree feedback can be really positive.
Yeah,
I love it. I like 360 feedback. I think, and Adam, you've already said this about reflection. It's really important. And I think when when I've had 360 feedback for myself in the past, there are bits that I've read and I've sort of gone, ouch, or oh, that's true. But when we talk about open and honest, but we have to start with ourselves. We've got to be open and honest about ourselves and what we do and how we perform and how we work. And I always think it's lovely to read all the nice stuff about yourself. That's the best bit, but we've got to really sort of focus on, what works is great and fantastic. What doesn't work and what do I need to change? And that's how we sort of move forward as a person. So I think 360 feedback definitely as part of that succession planning is really important. You get that overall view. I think it's a fantastic tool. So why not?
Yeah, I know. I mean, one of my managers is in the comments tonight, and I doubt that they'll come and say anything about this. But I know that my management teams aren't fully au fait with 360 feedback, but it's something that I truly enjoy. So, like, I will go down and do an internal quality inspection for one of my homes. I'll generate the report. I'll put all my findings together. I will deliver it to them, and I'll go, "How are you feeling?" They'll go, "Oh, well, I wish we'd done better, and I wish we got this." And I'll be like, "That's fine. How do you think I did?" And they go, "Well, no, give me some feedback. Have you found it okay? Did I deliver it okay? Have I been too harsh? Have I been dismissive? I want to make sure that you feel supported. So give me feedback so I can improve ready for the next time, because I want to get better and I want to hear how you found this experience." And sometimes they do sit there going, and I mean this with all the goodwill in the world if you're in the comments listening and watching the show right now. But it's true. I'm doing a lot of HR-y things at the moment, and I do them, and I say to my HR manager, I'll go, "Right, I'm not the HR expert. Read that, give me feedback, be brutal, be critical, because unless you're brutal and critical, I'll make many mistakes constantly, and I don't want to do that. So just give me the feedback." And people aren't used to being told to criticize you. And it is great. I mean, for me, it's empowering, because all I know is I'm going to get better and better and better. It's hard to imagine I'm being better. I know, but I'm going to get there. I am very narcissistic. No, but it's true. You want to be able to get better, and the only way you can do that is by inviting that criticism, that feedback in, that critical, constructive. I'm not asking you to put yourself in the stocks and sit there and ask people to throw tomatoes at you and say you're a shit manager and all of that. It's just about having that respectful, two-way, quid pro quo feedback with each other. I love 360 feedback. I think it's it shouldn't be the future, it's the present.
Lorna got fed up with that meeting.
I know, she was like, "Come on, guys."
I timed out. I was listening to you guys and thought, come on.
Mark, any thoughts from you for 360 feedback before we close out?
No, I agree with everything you say. I think it's good to reflect. It might not be what you want to hear, but it's the only way as a person that you're going to grow. And ultimately, if you grow as a leader, as a manager, it only benefits the people that are underneath you. And actually, if you do want to put your head in stocks and have sponges, tomatoes thrown at you, make it a charity event, because you can bet your bottom dollar. It's a bit like when you go to the school fete and the head teachers in the stocks. It's the busiest, busiest stand. So actually, it's a great way of raising money. So nothing wrong with it. So yeah, no, I've really enjoyed tonight. So David, Lorna, thank you again for giving up your Tuesday evening. I think it's been a really invigorating conversation back to kind of the basics of the next step into kind of management leadership. And I think also a reminder for people that are already in those roles, actually, some of the bits that we've discussed tonight, and it's okay just to be honest and open and transparent and real. And of course, Adam, thank you very much.
David, Lorna, I've really, really enjoyed tonight's show. I think for anyone watching, I'm just going to pull your website up again just before we close out. Have you got any final words of wisdom for our listeners tonight before I close the show?
Lorna, do you want to start, Lorna? Do you want?
I think for me, it's just remembering that that as leaders, we shape outcomes, not just for staff, but for the people that receive the support that we give. Upskilling managers, again, is not and trusting your team. It's not a tick in the box exercise. It's an investment. It's future proofing your business. And for me, leadership development isn't a luxury. We talk about resilience, but it's not a luxury. It's the heartbeat of a sustainable quality care service. So really take the time, go back to the culture, look at ways we can support each other and look after each other as well, because that's really important. And I think that's it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lorna. David?
I think for me, it would be if you run an effective business, but your culture is correct. It all starts and ends with culture. And if you get that right and you invest in your team, and you develop your team and you take them along the journey with you, the service can only benefit. And the better the service is and the better the culture is and the more motivated your staff are, the better care delivery is going to be provided for your clients, for your service users, and for your residents. So for me, that culture should be the foundation, run the business effectively from a business perspective, and all the care and compliance elements of this, those will be taken care of because you're running an effective business. You're making profit, you can reinvest in the business, but because your culture is correct. Those should be your starting points.
Totally. Thank you, David. And I'm going to say, I agree with both of you. And I'm just going to say one last point before I close this out. If there are people who aren't coming along with your culture and you're doing everything you're supposed to, and you can actually see that culture changing and shifting within the majority of your team, they're not going to be with you. Get rid of them. And I mean this, there's not just get rid of them. You know, if you have a rotten fruit in your fruit bowl, or you get slugs on your garden, you get rid of them because it's just going to damage everything. So just get rid of them. You don't need people in your organization who are going to inhibit change because they're not willing to change themselves. You don't need that. I know it's not just easy to get rid of people and you constructive dismissal claims and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. I get that. But actually, you need to start investing in getting the team where you need them to be. And that, if that means that people aren't going to come along the ride with you, then you need to either look at promoting others above or working your way around it, because you will never achieve what you want to achieve, especially if that person's in a senior leadership position, because they're just going to inhibit change left, right, and center. And you really need to sort of focus on taking that higher path. I've really enjoyed tonight. This has been a sort of back to basics for us, like Mark said, around just back to basics around good leadership. Mark and I, and I'm not told Mark I was going to say this in the show, but Mark and I have had discussions around the Care and View for next year, and we're pretty much booked up for this year now for all of our shows. And we've had some serious talks about next year around what it is we want to do, because we are still growing strong and going strong. And we're going to go back to basics for the whole of 2026. So the whole of 2026, all of our shows are going to be basic skills. Every single show that we do will be a basic skill, going back to the basics, uncovering tactics or tricks or tips or stuff that you've not actually thought about that will be applicable to yourselves as managers, as owners, as directors, but also your care teams and everyone else working within that service as well. We're going to go back to basics for 2026. But to do that, we need to hear from our listeners and let us know what it is that you want us to go back to basics on. We're going to be sharing more resources after each episode, and we're going to give you more tidbits after each episode, stuff that you can actually take away and potentially use this as internal training within your meetings and go, actually, should we have a look at this? Because they've spoken about this week and they had this guest on talking about X, Y, and Z, and we're going to really benefit from listening to this. It's going to be great. So let's get prepared for 2026. Catch us at the Care Show. We are going to be there. We're not talking this year. We are just going to be mooching, hanging around. I'll be strutting the aisles like it's a catwalk with my new svelte figure. So do come say hi. It'll be great to see you all. 9th and 10th of October, I want to say it is. I'm tempted to go for the 2 days this year. I booked the 2 days. I've not actually registered yet, but I will register. So it'll be good to see you all and catch up. And if you've got any ideas for the Care and View, do catch us there. Go to www.careideals.com and find out more about what they do. And then obviously visit our website and find out all about our sponsors there. They are fabulous and spectacular, and we truly love them for their generosity. But until then, Mark, what are we discussing next week? And I'm going to say goodnight.
Yes, so next week we are doing a part 2 on tenders and bids. So we did one, it must have been about 6 months ago, and we had so many follow-up questions from people. So yeah, we've got the team back to come and talk to us to answer some of those questions that a lot of you asked us that I don't have a clue how to answer. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really good conversation. I'm going to touch on one of the biggest number of questions was around the use of AI, sustainability. Can't remember what the third point was, but yeah, I think come and join us, because I think there's a lot more care providers talking about tendering for financial viability with local authorities, and obviously local authorities changing the way that they now go tender to market and bits and pieces. So yeah, really looking forward to next week from a personal growth point of view.
Not gonna lie, I was dreading the first show we did around bids and tenders because I was like, what on earth are we doing a show on bids and tenders about? Boring. But actually, I learned so much doing that show that I went into work and was like, have we considered this? Have we thought about doing this? This is a really good idea. I was like a kid that I just learned that new word. You know, that apparently kid on TikTok was like, apparently, this is an apparently. It's like I'd learned a new word, which was bids and tenders. So I am geared. I am stoked for part 2 of bids and tenders. If you've not watched part 1, please do go check it out because it's really, really insightful and I learned loads. You just see me for the whole episode going, like it was incredible. So yeah, really part 2.
I just had a look. The other part of it is around the upcoming changes in procurement law. So you might not formally do procurement in your organisations, but if you're going through tenders, then you should be procuring bits and pieces. So they're going to cover that as well for us. So yeah, it'll be a good conversation.
Fabulous. Right. 17:30, 19:30. Jesus, Adam. 7:30 next week, PM on YouTube, everywhere else. Check us out. www.careideals.com. Stay safe, everyone, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.
See you later.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.